Cheers, 1982 to 1993, was more than just a beloved sitcom. It was a cultural phenomenon that made audiences feel like regulars at a neighborhood bar. With its witty dialogue, unforgettable characters, and heartfelt moments, the show became a television classic. But behind the scenes, not all was laughter and light. Over the years, several key cast members have passed away, some after long battles with illness, others under tragic or unexpected circumstances. In this video, we take a closer look at the lives and legacies of the Cheers actors who are no longer with us, reflecting on their unforgettable contributions to the show, and the sorrowful chapters that followed fame. Their impact lives on, even as we mourn their loss. Kirstie Alley was born on January 12, 1951, in Wichita, Kansas, and stepped into the role of Rebecca Howe on Cheers in 1987 at the age of 36. Taking over after Shelley Long's departure, Alley brought a whole new dimension to the show with her portrayal of a corporate ice queen thrown into the unpredictable world of bar management. But Alley's journey was rooted in emotional darkness. As a child, she suffered in a household riddled with instability. Her parents had a toxic marriage, and her mother's sudden death in a car crash caused by a drunk driver left Alley emotionally detached and numb. She later admitted to substance abuse in her youth, turning to cocaine during her years at college, before eventually entering rehabilitation. Alley's rise in Hollywood was meteoric, but it was not without deep setbacks. After her Emmy win, she became increasingly erratic on sets, and several directors quietly blacklisted her for being uncontrollable and manipulative, accusations that surfaced during her time on Veronica's Closet. Her most damning controversy came with her weight loss company, Organic Liaison. Marketed as a Scientology-based detox program, it was sued for false advertising, with court records suggesting that even Alley herself never used the program as claimed. Despite settling for $130,000, the damage to her reputation lingered. Her personal life was no less chaotic. Her marriage to Parker Stevenson fell apart amid allegations of jealousy and emotional neglect. She never fully repaired her relationship with her adopted children, who reportedly distanced themselves during her final years. Alley's outspoken devotion to Scientology alienated many, and she was allegedly ordered by church higher-ups to sever ties with dissenters, including longtime friends. She refused to appear in Frasier due to Kelsey Grammer's public struggles with addiction, which she viewed as disruptive to her energy. Alley died on December 5, 2022, in Clearwater, Florida, a Scientology stronghold, at age 71, after a short, secretive battle with colon cancer. Her estate, valued at around $40 million, included several properties, including one in Beverly Hills and another near the Scientology headquarters. Roger Rees was born on May 5, 1944, and portrayed Robin Colcord in Cheers from 1989 at the age of 45. Robin was the archetype of the charming, cutthroat tycoon, a manipulative British billionaire who waltzed into the Cheers bar with an aristocratic smirk and proceeded to unravel the show's emotional core by seducing Rebecca Howe and threatening the fragile bar dynamic. Fans loved to hate him, but it was Rees's razor-sharp wit and coiled menace that gave Colcord depth and lasting impression. Behind the dry elegance, Roger harbored a stormy, largely hidden life. Born in Aberystwyth, Wales, he came from a broken and impoverished household. His father left early, and his mother worked long hours in a laundry. Roger often spoke about his constant shame growing up in threadbare clothes and his early stammer, which made him a target of ridicule. He buried himself in books and used performance as a form of escape, masking pain with characters. Although he earned widespread acclaim in the theater world, including a Tony for Nicholas Nickleby, his transition to screen was riddled with rejections. Multiple casting directors dismissed him as too theatrical, and he was quietly dropped from 3 major film roles in the 90s after conflicts with directors, one of whom accused him of rewriting scenes behind their back. Industry whispers spoke of a control-freak temperament masked by British politeness. While never embroiled in public scandal, Rees's inner circle knew of his fierce mood swings and long periods of depressive withdrawal. His decades-long partnership with playwright Rick Elias, though celebrated, was riddled with emotional distance. And at one point, Reese reportedly checked himself into a private clinic for exhaustion during their collaboration. His final years were spent hiding the severity of his brain cancer diagnosis, continuing to perform despite collapsing during rehearsals twice. Roger Reese died on July 10, 2015, in New York City, age 71, of complications from the tumor. He left behind properties in Manhattan and modest theatrical royalties. His net worth was estimated at $1.5 million, a sum reflective of a life steeped in art, not excess. J. Thomas was born on July 12, 1948, in Kermit, Texas, and took on the role of Eddie LeBec in Cheers in 1987 at age 39. He played a washed-up hockey goalie whose eccentric charm and goofy superstition made him a quirky but lovable partner for Carla Tortelli. The character's sudden death by Zamboni was more than a plot twist. It was the fallout of a shocking behind-the-scenes controversy. Jay's upbringing was riddled with instability. Born to an oil field worker and raised in the American South, his youth was marred by alcoholism in the family and a deep-seated need to prove himself. He spoke later in life about growing up misunderstood and masking insecurity with humor, a trait that defined both his radio and television personas. Though his breakout came in Murphy Brown, Thomas's career was no stranger to turbulence. He was blacklisted from several sets for his brash, often offensive jokes. His behavior was described as unpredictable, and some co-stars avoided him altogether. A bitter fallout with producers of Love and War stemmed from his combative nature on set. One of his most painful public failures was his unsuccessful bid to transition into serious film roles in the late 90s, an attempt that flopped with critics and saw him retreat back to smaller TV and radio gigs. In his personal life, scandal wasn't far behind. In the 1980s, he was hit with a surprise paternity suit. It turned out Thomas had fathered a son he later gave up for adoption, only to reunite with him decades later under heavy media scrutiny. His marriage to Sally Mickelson, though long-lasting, was not without whispers of infidelity and prolonged separations. He kept most family matters guarded, but insiders say the dynamic with his children was tense and unresolved. His final years were difficult. Diagnosed with throat cancer in 2014, Thomas fought the illness quietly while still working. Friends say he grew increasingly reclusive, and some colleagues speculated that the cancer may have been linked to his chain-smoking habit and years of vocal strain from radio. He died on August 24, 2017, in Santa Barbara, California, at the age of 69. At the time of his death, his estate included a modest home, radio royalties, and residuals from TV appearances, with his net worth estimated around $3 million. Nicholas Kisanto was born on January 19, 1924, in Providence, Rhode Island, and joined Cheers in 1982 at age 58 as coach Ernie Pantuso, a former baseball coach turned bartender. His character was a lovable, absent-minded father figure with a gentle soul, whose innocence provided the emotional grounding for the show's sharp humor. While the audience adored his pure-hearted performance, Kisanto's life behind the scenes was marred by demons he fought silently for decades. Raised in a poor Italian-American family during the Depression, he grew up witnessing domestic violence and hunger. He joined the Navy during World War II, but returned home struggling to find purpose, turning to alcohol as a coping mechanism. Though he eventually became a respected television director in the 60s and 70s, working on shows like Starsky and Hutch, his battles with alcoholism sabotaged his momentum. One of his biggest career humiliations came when he was fired from a film project in 1974 for appearing on set drunk and belligerent, an incident that led to his being unofficially blacklisted from several studios. He entered sobriety in 1976, becoming deeply involved with Alcoholics Anonymous, even sponsoring other recovering actors. But his health had already begun to decline. On the set of Cheers, his physical deterioration became evident. He had difficulty remembering lines, suffered from heart failure, and often appeared confused during tapings. Though the producers protected him, scripts were increasingly rewritten around his limitations. Kisanto was deeply spiritual, hanging a photo of Geronimo in his dressing room as a totem of resilience and pride. On February 12, 1985, after missing several tapings, he was found dead in his Los Angeles home from a heart attack, age 61. Few knew he had been hiding his worsening condition, fearing it would cost him the only stable role he had ever known. He left behind little wealth. His net worth was under $1 million at the time of his death, mostly from his Cheers salary and modest savings. Frances Sternhagen was born on January 13, 1930, and took on the role of Esther Klavan in 1986 at age 56. Her portrayal of Cliff Clavin's meddling, sarcastic mother added a biting maternal presence to Cheers from 1986 to 1993. Esther's scolding tone, unfiltered opinions, and overbearing personality made her both hilarious and relatable to audiences, who saw in her the quintessential overprotective parent. While the public adored Sternhagen's performances, few knew of the quiet hardships she masked behind her polished stagecraft. Born into a cold, emotionally distant family, she was raised by a mother who battled depression and a father prone to anger outbursts. Sternhagen admitted later in life that she struggled with deep feelings of invisibility as a child, often retreating into imaginary roles to escape real-life trauma. Her Broadway acclaim did not shield her from setbacks. She was infamously dropped from a major film adaptation in the 1970s, after producers claimed she looked too old for a role she originated on stage. While never embroiled in scandal, Sternhagen was rumored to have fiercely clashed with certain co-stars, using passive-aggressive tactics to dominate scenes and hold her ground in male-led productions. She married actor Thomas A. Carlin, but the union, though long-lasting, was allegedly marred by years of emotional distance and long separations. The sudden death of Carlin in 1991 devastated her, and she quietly withdrew from public life for years. Frances Sternhagen died on November 27, 2023 in New Rochelle, New York, at the age of 93 from natural causes. Her estate, including royalties, stage memorabilia, and real estate, was estimated at around $5 million. Though she left behind no scandalous legacy, Sternhagen's life was marked by silent battles and behind-the-scenes resilience, far removed from her poised public image. Lois Deanszi was born on May 4, 1930, in Glasgow, Scotland, and appeared on Cheers in 1983 at the age of 53, portraying minor characters such as Lady Number One and Sister Marie. Although her screen time was brief, her sharp presence and unmistakable theatrical flair gave her characters a peculiar grace that left a mark. Her roles were subtle, but audiences often remembered her for the unexpected humor she injected with a mere glance or raised eyebrow. Yet behind the curtain, Deanszi carried the weight of old-world tragedy. Raised in post-war Scotland in a household overshadowed by financial hardship and strict Catholic guilt, she fled to the U.S. not for fame, but for freedom. A trained classical actress, she made her name on Broadway, earning a Tony nomination and winning the Drama Desk Award for Mornings at 7. But for every accolade, there was silence, an unspoken grief after a secret, failed marriage in the 1960s, rumored to involve a closeted partner and intense emotional abuse. She never remarried, never had children, and remained fiercely private, often retreating to her home for months between roles. Colleagues praised her professionalism, though some whispered that she was cold, possibly a defense against decades in a misogynistic industry that typecast her as a nun, a mother, or a maid. Despite her appearances in hits like Tootsie, Arachnophobia, and Addams Family Values, Hollywood never fully embraced her. She often turned down roles that required nudity or romantic entanglements, citing respect for the dignity of women, though some claimed it was her trauma talking. Deanszi died on April 3, 2021, in Greenbrae, California, at the age of 90, alone and largely forgotten by mainstream media. Her estate, mostly consisting of savings and a modest property in Marin County, was valued at under $1 million. She left no memoirs, no heirs, just a legacy of poise and restraint, hinting at a life spent mastering the art of silence in an industry that rewards noise. Harry Anderson was born on October 14th, 1952, and first played Harry the Hat Gittes on Cheers in 1982 at the age of 30. His character, a sly, fast-talking con man with a penchant for trickery, brought sleight of hand and subversive humor into the bar's everyday antics. On screen, he charmed audiences with his mischief and mind games. But behind the act was a man who harbored deep frustrations with Hollywood's exploitation of creative minds. Raised in poverty by a single mother who moved frequently and was once arrested for theft, Anderson's childhood was marred by instability. In adulthood, he resented being typecast, and after Night Court, his attempts to reinvent himself, particularly through magic and writing, met with lukewarm reception. One of his greatest career embarrassments came when his New Orleans nightclub and curio shop, Spade and Archer, shuttered due to financial mismanagement. In 2006, he and his wife sued the city after losing their property to Hurricane Katrina-related blight, but the case drew controversy for alleged exaggerations in their claims. Anderson was known to be increasingly reclusive and outspoken against Hollywood, often accusing it of being a soul-sucking machine. Friends revealed he became paranoid, obsessed with conspiracy theories, and socially isolated in his final years. He died on April 16, 2018, at the age of 65, at his home in Asheville, North Carolina, from a stroke brought on by influenza and heart disease. His net worth was estimated at $5 million, primarily from earlier television successes, but with mounting debt and unpaid tax issues tarnishing his final financial picture. His legacy remains complicated, a cult icon whose bitterness toward the industry he once thrived in cast a shadow over his final chapters. Max Wright was born on August 2, 1943, in Detroit, Michigan, and joined Cheers in 1986 at age 43, playing Jim Fleener, a low-level corporate hatchet man in 2 brief but memorable episodes. Although his time on Cheers was fleeting, Max had already become a familiar face on television, later achieving fame and infamy as Willie Tanner, the perpetually frazzled father in ALF. Audiences saw a gentle suburban everyman, but behind that composed exterior was a deeply embittered man, trapped in a role he loathed. Wright resented the show's puppet-centric dynamic, telling friends he felt like a prop in his own show. His relationship with ALF's crew soured to the point of open hostility. He would allegedly bolt from set the moment filming wrapped, refusing any post-production interaction. The emotional toll of years of creative dissatisfaction led to darker personal spirals. In the 2000s, tabloids exploded with shocking images of Max smoking crack cocaine in seedy environments, as well as grainy footage of him engaging in risky sexual behavior with strangers in motels. He was arrested for DUI twice, the second time narrowly avoiding jail with a plea deal that included rehab, though sources claimed he relapsed multiple times. Once a promising stage actor, Wright saw many doors close, with one Broadway director reportedly pulling his name from a production shortlist after the scandals. His marriage to Linda Ibarrondo remained intact, but estranged friends described it as a quiet coexistence rather than a partnership, especially during his years of addiction. Diagnosed with lymphoma in 1995, Max entered remission but faced a brutal recurrence in the late 2000s and 10s. He died on June 26, 2019, at age 75 in Hermosa Beach, California. His modest estate, valued around $1 million, reflected a career full of ups and staggering downs. Though remembered for his warm screen presence, Max Wright's life behind the scenes was a haunting tale of typecasting, self-destruction, and a man never quite comfortable in his own skin. Eric Christmas was born on March 19, 1916, and portrayed Father Barry in Cheers in 1988 at the age of 72. Though his screen time was brief, he exuded an austere calm that made his character a no-nonsense priest, a memorable foil to the bar's irreverence. His character symbolized moral authority, and audiences appreciated the unexpected weight his presence brought to the episode. But behind the composed demeanor was a life marked by suppressed trauma and quiet disillusionment. Born into post-World War I London, Christmas grew up in a household wrecked by poverty and violence. Professionally, Christmas was respected, but not untouched by struggle. He was often typecast due to his British formality, which limited his exposure to mainstream success in Hollywood. While he thrived in theater and academia, he was passed over for several major television roles in the 70s after clashing with producers over creative control. Whispers in theater circles suggested he could be infuriatingly stubborn and quick to dismiss actors he deemed beneath the material. His biggest heartbreak came in the late 80s when a directorial role in a prestigious West End production was revoked after an actor accused him of psychological bullying during rehearsals. Though the allegations never went public, the damage was done, and doors quietly closed. In his private life, Eric never married and had no children. Close friends suggested his celibacy masked deep internal conflict, perhaps rooted in repressed identity or past trauma. He was often solitary, even while generously mentoring his students at UC San Diego. One of his few public breakdowns came after the death of a beloved former student in a car crash, a moment that friends say cracked something open in him permanently. He spent his later years in modest seclusion in Camarillo, California, where he died on July 22, 2000, at age 84 from natural causes. Despite a lifetime in the arts, his estate was meager, valued under $1 million, consisting primarily of teaching pensions, royalties from old television appearances, and a small bungalow filled with rare books and forgotten stage scripts. Georgia Brown, born Lillian Claire Clott on October 21, 1933, made her mark on Cheers in 1990 to 1991 as Madame Lasora, the flamboyant psychic who delivered hilariously grim predictions to Carla. At age 57, Georgia brought an eccentric charm to the role, earning herself an Emmy nomination and briefly becoming a cult favorite among fans. But that late career TV role was just a fragment of a much deeper legacy. Brown was a stage titan, best known for originating the role of Nancy in Oliver, in both London and on Broadway, where her rich contralto voice and explosive charisma earned her international acclaim. But fame came at a steep personal cost. Born in London's East End to Romanian Jewish immigrants, she grew up amid brutal poverty and racial hostility. Her family home was bombed during the Blitz, and she once confessed in an interview that singing was her way of screaming back at the world. Her early years in showbiz were tumultuous, rife with romantic entanglements, backstage betrayals, and a lifelong battle with stage fright so severe that she required tranquilizers before performances. Though outwardly confident, Brown struggled with chronic depression, worsened by a string of failed relationships, including a secret engagement to a married West End producer. Her advocacy for feminist and anti-racist causes also earned her enemies. She was once blackballed from a major revival for being too political. The worst blow came in the late 80s when she was passed over for a high-profile Broadway revival she had helped develop. Friends say the rejection broke her spirit. She turned to alcohol for solace, and her health began to deteriorate rapidly. Georgia Brown died on July 5, 1992, at age 58 from complications following intestinal surgery in London. Her estate, reportedly made up of royalties, personal memorabilia, and a modest flat in Chelsea, was valued under $1 million. Though not a financial powerhouse, her artistic legacy remained untouched. Georgia Brown was a woman of fire, fiercely talented, painfully vulnerable, and never afraid to stand alone. Keem Curtis was born on February 15, 1923, and joined Cheers in 1990 at age 67 as the acerbic and classist John Allen Hill. Hill was the kind of man everyone at Cheers loved to loathe, a restaurant snob who looked down on the bar regulars, especially Carla. Yet his refined delivery and acidic charm added complexity and comic tension to the ensemble. Off-screen, Keem Curtis was just as prickly, but in far darker ways. Raised in Salt Lake City in a devout Mormon family, Keem's youth was marked by suffocating religious control and an abusive father who demanded perfection. Deeply closeted for most of his life, he lived with the fear of exposure during an era when homosexuality could end a career, and in his case nearly did. In the late 50s, he narrowly escaped scandal when a former lover attempted to blackmail him with explicit letters. the situation was hushed up with a payoff arranged by a theater producer. Though known as a Tony-winning actor, thanks to the Rothschilds, he developed a reputation in the industry for being impossible to direct. Co-stars complained of condescending remarks, sudden outbursts, and psychological mind games. He once walked off a film set after a 19-year-old grip called him old school. His worst professional fallout occurred in 1984 when he was fired from a West Coast production for allegedly bullying a co-star into tears and demanding script rewrites. Privately, he led a life of near total isolation. Never married, he cycled through secret relationships and suffered 2 nervous breakdowns in the 70s, one of which resulted in a brief institutional stay in Arizona. In later years, Keem became increasingly paranoid, installing surveillance in his home and refusing interviews, convinced his past would surface. His estrangement from his family was never repaired. A legal battle over a family property in the 1990s drained much of his savings. Keem Curtis died on October 13, 2002, in Bountiful, Utah, from complications related to Alzheimer's disease. He was 79. With no spouse or children, his estate was left to a former assistant, prompting further whispers among those who knew him. His net worth was under $1 million, consisting mostly of a modest Utah home, residual checks, and a dwindling savings account. Robert McCrae, born May 4, 1945, entered the world of Cheers in 1990 as Fire Marshal Dobbins at the age of 45. His role, a by-the-book fire inspector perpetually exasperated by the bar's safety violations, served as both comic relief and a bureaucratic antagonist. Yet behind the laughter, McCrae's own story reveals a far more chaotic and conflicted journey. Born into a strict Catholic household in San Diego, Robert was the son of a naval officer with a brutal temper. His childhood was marred by severe discipline and emotional neglect. He later confessed in an interview that he learned to act just to survive at the dinner table. His flair for the theatrical was a survival instinct long before it became a profession. Despite success on stage, including Shakespearean roles and a stint on Broadway in Amadeus, McCrae's Hollywood career was patchy. He was let go from 2 sitcom pilots in the early 80s for being unreliable, and rumors circulated about his temper and erratic behavior on set. He fought a decades-long battle with alcohol, admitting in 2002 that he once blacked out during a rehearsal and woke up on a bus in Tijuana. His darkest professional moment came in 1997, when he was sued by a stagehand for verbal abuse and minor assault during a touring production. Though the case was settled out of court, it shattered his already fragile reputation in theater circles. His personal life was marked by both courage and chaos. Openly gay in an industry still hesitant to accept it, he lived unapologetically with his longtime partner, Luigi Campercioli, in North Hollywood. But their relationship was tested by McCrae's volatility and periods of depressive withdrawal. Friends said he could go from gregarious to reclusive in a matter of days, and he once vanished from a play's opening night only to be found days later in a desert motel. In later years, his health collapsed under the weight of alcohol-related illness and dementia, worsened by 2 strokes. Robert McCrae died on January 12, 2025, at the age of 79, at a nursing facility in Los Angeles. He left behind a modest estate valued between $1 and $2 million, consisting mostly of residuals from commercials and long-term TV work. Thank you for watching as we reflected on the lives and legacies of the actors from Cheers who are no longer with us. Their humor, charm, and unforgettable performances brought joy to millions and helped shape the show into a classic. While their journeys ended far too soon, their impact lives on through every scene, every laugh, and every memory they've left behind. As we honor their lives, we're reminded of how deeply television can touch our hearts. Join us next time as we look back at more stars who left us too soon, but whose stories continue to shine.